Hey guys, this is Alex with the Motorola quench, otherwise known as the cliq XT. I'm actually going to do a small review of the actual phone and a good hardware tour. I always believe that the hardware is usually the most important thing. The software can always be changed. So let's go over the phone real quick. This phone is in Canada, can be purchased through Rogers. Goes for about $425 Canadian if you actually purchase it outright. Yet you can get quite a large subsidy. You can get it for 49 bucks otherwise. I have gone ahead and purchased the device. This is how it looks. It's actually quite small in the hands. It's a small device. To give you a size comparison, here, let's just turn that off. Okay, to give you a size comparison, this here is the HTC Touch, an old phone, but the size was always a nice size. It felt really good in the hands, and there hasn't been much touch phones about this size. So to give you an idea, this phone is actually not bad at all. The actual thickness is actually thinner than the HTC Touch, yet maybe half an inch, quarter of an inch taller. That's where the comparisons end. The actual phone is a capacitive touchscreen phone, so it is a glass screen. It's definitely breakable if you drop it. The actual phone feels solid in the hands. It's got a great build quality. It does have a few drawbacks, which I'll talk about in a second, but let's go over the hardware real quick. Some of the questions I had when I was looking at this on YouTube before I purchased it was, is this a metal bezel? Is it plastic or is it metal? Well, it is metal, so it will give you that strong build quality feeling in the hands, and you'll likely not break it or crack it as easily. Another thing is I was wondering whether or not these buttons down here were touch sensitive, just like the trackpad. Well, they are a tactile button, so you will need to depress them to access the whatever you're doing with that button. So you do have a menu button, you've got a search button, you've got a home button, and you've got a back button. Pretty common with most Android devices, but the actual cool thing about it is, unlike, for example, the HTC Magic, where they were each little buttons that all had their own, I guess, if it was to break, it was just the one button that would break off, and could feel loose after a while. This here is basically completely flush with the actual front there. So what that means is that there is no play in the front whatsoever. This is a very well built front here. The actual inlay of the plastic that goes around the screen and the actual glass screen and the metal bezel makes it so that it really looks nice, and it feels nice, feels like it won't crack or break. My gripe with a lot of these touchscreen phones is that normally around the actual glass you'll find a gasket, like a small piece of rubber that goes all the way around the screen, and quite often if you're like me, where you don't necessarily put a case on the phone, you just usually put it in your pocket and you're just careful with it, that gasket will still get ruined after a while. So it'll either look deformed or it'll get scratched up. So it's one of those things where I've only noticed it on the X10 as well as this device, where, and actually the Motorola or the HTC Magic as well, where the actual glass and plastic meet. There's no rubber gasket in between, which is really nice. I don't have to worry about that anymore. Now, as far as the some of my gripes over this phone is, obviously the interface is a 1.5 version of Android, so it doesn't have some of the fancier updates that you'd find through Google Maps. So this does have compass. It does have a compass. It does have basically what do you call? It does basically change screens once you actually put it in landscape. So I mean, for the most part, it doesn't actually run the programs the same way, but you can still do some pretty nifty things. So right now this is running Moto Blur, right? Okay, but I can go ahead and, for example, put a theme called GDE, which you can find in the actual marketplace, and what this does is it actually changes the whole user interface to a cube. So instead, now I have a cube that actually renders my widgets. So it's kind of neat. Another thing that it's worth mentioning is that despite the whole phone feeling well built, the only weak point that I really found in the actual physical aspect of the phone was this. This is actually nice, but if you look closely, what I've done is I've had to put tape, and for the most part it's not because it doesn't stay on properly. It definitely stays on properly, but without those pieces of tape, you can actually depress on the back. So like say on the top here, it would click, or on the sides it would click and it would creak. So that plastic has definitely made it stiffer and more solid feeling. So I mean, it's a word of advice. That's something that you'd consider with plastic. Plastic does tend to get weak after a while. I mean, I've only had this phone for about a week, but I mean, I'm already experiencing those sort of things. So that's really the only gripe I had. As far as the buttons on the side, some people might be a little concerned that they're a little loose. So like the volume, power, and camera, they might say, oh, well, they're kind of loose, maybe I should return it. Well, all Motorola devices as of yet have loose buttons on the sides, so really don't be concerned about it. I mean, even the Motorola Milestones has loose buttons. But overall, the actual size of the device, the build quality of the device is quite nice, and I would strongly suggest you get this due to the fact that it's got Wi-Fi, it's got Bluetooth, and it also does have GPS. So for example, for GPS, even though you can't get the Google navigations, you can get something like this, which is basically this is Copilot Live. So I mean, it's pretty cool. Like, you don't really need to have some of the fancier things that you have on the 2.2 or 2.1 Android, which I've also used. I've had the Nexus 1, I've had the like I say, the Milestone. They're great devices, but this is just as good, and you can rest assured that this device will have an update in the near future with 2.1 or 2.2. So I mean, it's win-win. It does run on a 528 megahertz processor, which is the same as the HTC Magic. It does have the capabilities of running very fast and be very useful. The actual camera in the back is my only gripe. It's got 5 megapixel camera. It is an LED flash there that you see on the left there, but I consider it more of a 2 megapixel camera, just like you would have on this device here. So keep in mind, the colors will be washed out. It's not something you want to use for your day-to-day picture taking, but it's definitely very nice. Another thing that I quite like on this device, unlike some of the other Android devices that I've seen, is something called the radio. So you've got a radio here that you can actually go ahead and use as long as you've got your headset in. So let's show you how that looks. Just gonna plug in a headset here, and let's go back to that radio. This takes a second here. There you go. So this is the radio interface, and I mean, you could just render through your music stations as you wish. So it's just gathering your music stations. So it's kind of cool. I haven't seen that on other Android devices except for, I think, the HTC Desire that's coming out has it. So I mean, for a 1.5 Android device, it does still have some pretty cool features. I hope you get this device too, and I hope you can share your experience with it. As far as I'm concerned right now, this is a keeper. I don't plan on exchanging it for anything else, at least as of yet. I have considered the Samsung Anya. Maybe you can give me some feedback of what you think of that device. It doesn't run on the same operating software, but it does have an excellent camera. So if you can give me some advice on that device, and if you have questions about this device, or you have comments you'd like to leave, just leave them right below. Thanks, guys.